now. So you should see the record symbol. All right. How I came about doing this is I was going through my daily news articles, and I saw an article about doing presentations from a text-based terminal. And I thought that sounded pretty cool because I'm a geek and that sounds like a pretty geeky thing to do. So I read the article, and I have reference to it at the bottom. Well, to the other two presentation tools at the end of this. And I looked, and MDP seemed like the easiest one to use. So I chose it to figure out. I was learning Markdown at the time, so it kind of helped me with that. Gave me some motivation. So I started looking into it, and I thought, hey, this seems pretty cool. I gave a presentation for Novolug back in October or November, I believe it was. And of course, the question I got there was, why? Why would you want to do this? And I have no real good answer. The closest I can come is one of the advantages to MDP is you can edit the file with any text editor anywhere. If you have an SSH client on your phone, you can edit the file on the phone. It doesn't take much resources like Google Slides or LibreOffice or that other thing that people tend to use. So I thought this would be kind of a cool thing to look into. So I came up with this. Introduction to MDP, which is a terminal-based presentation tool. So that kind of tells you what we're going to talk about. What is MDP? Installing MDP, creating presentations, and running presentations, and then I'll show a couple of alternatives and talk about them very briefly. So MDP is a Markdown presentation software. It supports basic Markdown formatting such as lists, unordered list, ordered list. You can set code, highlighting, etc., etc. It will run on most Linux, Mac, FreeBSD, and if you use WSL, not WLS, WSL or Cygwin, you can run it on Windows, which is what I'm doing. You need curses SW to compile from source, which includes lib ncurses dev 5-dev and lib curses w5-dev on Raspbian or Ubuntu flavors. It is available in repos for Ubuntu, Debian. You can do it on Brew, Slack, and Arch. And you'll see at the bottom of the page, there's the source and documentation can be found on GitHub. So installing MDP from packages. Like I said, on Arch, you can install it from a package. Cygwin, Debian, FreeBSD, OS X. You can use Homebrew, Slackware, and Ubuntu. I don't know so much the Red Hat based or SUSE Linux have it available. I don't use those, so I haven't checked. And it didn't mention them in any of the research I did. Installing from source. It's very easy to install. You just clone the repo, which I showed before. CD into the MDP directory, make install, and start off with your sample MD, and it'll show you, it'll run the sample MD as a slideshow. So creating presentations. Presentations are created in the text editor using an abbreviated basic Markdown with a few extras. I haven't tried all these tags, so if you want to play with it, feel free. Any terminal sharing app will work, and you, as I said, you can create them anywhere. So some of the examples of Markdown. There are some limitations. Obviously, supposedly you can get graphics, but I haven't tried it, and from what I've read, it's a pain. It wouldn't work on, you know, obviously it wouldn't work if you had a Ubuntu server and no X Windows. The text formatting is kind of limited depending on the type of terminal, and they mention that on the GitHub page. So you start off and you can set the title, the author, and you can also set the date with meta tags. The meta tags will start with a % sign, and I know for a fact title, author, and date work. If you notice at the top, in the top middle, you'll see the intro to MDP, the title of it. Bottom left is my name, and then bottom right is the slide count. To break between slides, the most common way is a horizontal rule, which is just, I believe, 3 or more dashes. There are others, but they don't really break it up well enough, and this, I'm not even going to go into them. I didn't even look at them because they didn't make sense compared to this. This also makes it easier to read the source when you have horizontal rule as opposed to the other. I think there are 2 other ways. Centering text, you put a dash greater than on the left and less than dash on the right. The intro to MDP is using them. All the slide titles use that centering. If you want to ignore blocks of Markdown text, you start and end them with 3 backticks. If you use a backslash, it'll escape a single tag, and there are examples a little later. It uses the normal headings that Markdown does. Sometimes it depends on the terminal. It may or may not highlight, but it will find a way to distinguish. Single hash for heading 1, 2 for heading 2, 3 for heading 3, etc. As I mentioned, you can have unordered lists. Unordered lists can start with either an asterisk or a dash. If you put a space before the asterisk or a dash, it will indent the list item, such as the unordered list, and the will display as a plus dash. Ordered lists are written as 1 dot, like you do in Markdown, followed by the item. Highlighting text, you can't do it on the first character of the line, can't be your opening asterisk, but you can do it around with start and end your highlighted section with 2 asterisks. On some terminals, a single asterisk will put italics, but obviously this terminal doesn't do that, so it just highlights. You can add links. So the example shows the name, in brackets the name, square brackets, the name that'll show up on the slide, and then in brackets or parentheses, we call them over here, you put the website. So you'll see the Google shows up highlighted in blue with a 0, which references the links in the bottom left of the screen.
Do you have a compatibility list, or is there one about for terminals versus what you can do with it, or is that?
I have not seen one. It's pretty much a trial and error thing, because there are so many different kinds of terminals. It would be a never-ending list to try to do that.
Right.
As I said, I'm using WSL with Ubuntu installed, and that's how I'm showing this. When I did it for Novolug, I did it in Terminator on Ubuntu, or actually Linux Mint, and it didn't give me the italics.
Okay.
Of the tags, the italics is the only one that didn't work.
Right. So pretty much everything works.
I found everything I've tried works, except for the italics. Although you'll notice the links, the headings aren't increased in font sizes. The font has, in this particular terminal, the font has to be consistent on the whole page. So those don't work too well.
Right.
So before I go into running a presentation, let me show you what the so you all see a different screen now, black with. Can you all see a different screen?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, John, just on that formatting, how did you do reverse color formatting?
I will show you that in a minute.
Okay. It was the most dramatic, isn't it?
It is. I do prefer that coloring over what you're seeing now, but basically this whole thing is 150 lines. So we'll go up. So starting from the top, I've got my metadata. I didn't change the date because I didn't feel like it. Intro to MDP on that first page. And then I have you see the 3 backticks to create the essentially code block for the MDP. Now, one thing you do have to do is before your page break here, there has to be a blank line. Otherwise, it won't recognize the page break, which I should have put in there.
Otherwise, the page break's part of the page.
Right. It'll. And I only found that out while I was doing the updates for this. So yeah, it's pretty basic. Like I said, basic Markdown. You can see here again another block for title and author. And then here's ignoring the Markdown tags. Here's an example of using the backslash to escape the signal.
What did you call that reverse quote? It's interesting.
I call it a backtick.
Backtick, that's it.
Yeah.
I'd never given it a name before.
Yeah, the one challenge I have is it's been so long since I've worked in the UK. I wasn't sure if there was a term in the UK for it.
No, it's normally backslash. No.
No.
Well, backslash.
No, backtick, not. No, he's on about the tick, not the. So
yeah, I'm on
the
about.
backslashes up there.
Yeah.
Those bits
Backslash
there.
is the line.
It's an angled dash.
Right. If you look, like line 93.
It's
as-
the button above tab.
Yep.
The button above tab to the left of 1 on your keyboard.
Yep.
There you go. Now you've all gone looking for that.
Yeah.
So here you see the slide we're on now, line 133 to 141, shows the like I said, Google and the square brackets, and then the website, and
Yeah,
it
we
just
can
takes
see
them
it
in
now.
order. If I put another one in there, below Novalug, that would end up being number 2 on there. So any questions so far about this? Because I am close to being done.
No, it's cool. Have you
So-
used it for anything other than this?
I have not yet. I'm going to. All right. So
Well, I find it quite exciting. I taught PowerPoint for years, so I'm pretty good with PowerPoint.
So, all right. So running presentations. Space or enter will take you to the next slide. Backspace will take you to the previous slide. If you can see me on my video, I'm using a presenter, so I don't have to touch the keyboard. Forward and back work as you would expect them to. So, it didn't, let me go back because it didn't show my,
Does F5 start the presentation from the beginning?
it's supposed to, it's possible I didn't save it yet. So
Right.
let me do this.
Because that works
Okay.
on Impress too.
To quit is Q, quits out of it. Now, you asked how I got the reverse,
Yes.
reverse coloring. If you look at my command line, MDP, the -TI will give you the reverse. So so you can see the T is for it disables transparency in the transparent terminal, and the I will invert, swap black and white. You can also have it so that there's no slide number at the bottom, or show what slide you're on, but not the top. You can set debug messages, but you shouldn't need to. If you do MDP on its own, without anything attached to it, it just, let's see. I haven't done this before, so we'll see if it works. I don't know. It's supposed to create a slideshow on the fly. And where it presents it, I don't know. The other thing you can do is in this, where I'm sitting now, if I just type 1.8.
Yeah.
Trouble in Wales.
If you hit the home key, it'll take you to the first slide. If you hit end, it'll take you to the last slide. If you type a number, like I typed 18, it takes you to that slide number. If you hit enter after, it'll go to the following slide. Just because it assumes you hit enter. And Q will exit the presentation. As I mentioned, there are other command line tools. There's one called TPP. It uses its own Markdown language, totally different from Markdown itself. It's more limited than MDP because of its own Markdown language, but it does have one really cool feature is if you surround text in the -- begin shell output and -- end shell output, it'll appear to type out whatever is in between your two dashes. Sorry, I had to yell at my dog.
Have you got the right terminal screen on? Did you switch from the white one to this black one?
Which, oh, is it
Yeah,
sharing the wrong one?
yeah. I think you
Well,
might be.
Yes, I am sharing the wrong one.
Ah, we didn't see that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's better.
So, yeah. As I said, space or enter takes you to the next slide. Backspace takes you to the previous slide. If you have a presenter, clicker, or whatever you want to call it, you can go forward and back. The home key goes to the first slide. The end key will go to the last slide. And if you type in a number, such as in this case 16, it'll take you to this slide. And Q will exit the presentation. The two other ones mentioned in the article, one is TPP, which uses its own version of Markdown language. It's more limited in what it can do because it does use its own formatting, but you can use the begin shell output, end shell output, and it appears to type whatever is in between, which is kind of a cool feature. It would be neat to see that in MDP, but I don't see Markdown working that way. The other one is called, and I didn't add it because it looked absolute pants. I was not at all impressed with the other one. It is called Sent, S-E-N-T, and it does support images, but you have to have, it's got to be in an X Windows environment, and it'll pop up in X11 Windows that'll show you the picture. It didn't impress me at all, so I didn't even bother with it. So this presentation is on GitHub as well, and I will, when I send the link for the YouTube video, I will include the link for the presentation. And there we go. The one thing it doesn't do is now that I'm on the screen to exit the presentation, I have to hit Q for quit. So it doesn't automatically take you out of it. So any questions, comments on this?
I did notice that there's a Python MDP in the Fedora repository. I don't know if that's the same one. Is this Python or?
I thought it was Ruby, but then I looked at the GitHub page, and all the source code ended in a .c. So I'm not sure.
Okay. So you haven't actually used this as yet, then? Yes.
I used it for the two presentations, and I used it for another presentation that didn't come about.
Right. And where would you see this actually being the most useful? Is it quicker, do you think, to produce? Or...
It is really quick to produce. If you know Markdown,
yeah,
it is hugely quick to produce because you're just typing the formatting. you don't have to, there's no mouse work involved. And we all know that anytime you touch a mouse, you're slowing down.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Can't wait to use it at work. Plus, you can version control your presentations in Git or something.
Yep, and you can even script it. You can format output from a command and turn it into an MDP. The other thing that's cool is I could take this and make it my readme.md file in the GitLab. It's GitLab, not GitHub. In the GitLab repository, and it would render the Markdown. So I can take the same source and it'll serve more than one purpose, because it'll render in Markdown, and you can then take it, convert it to HTML. You can make a PDF of it. You can throw it into Pandoc.
That was going to be my other question, actually. Is there many tools for MDP to whatever, or whatever to MDP?
Yeah, because the source for it is Markdown.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Okay.
So with the source being Markdown, you can with the source being Markdown, you can have it go anywhere.
Can you help go back a step? What is Markdown? I'm not familiar with Markdown. I know what markup is.
Markdown is a markup language.
It's a type of markup language, is it?
It's a type of markup language. By the way, officially now you guys are all going to be on YouTube. Sorry, I stopped sharing my screen.
I'll put my English hat on. You'll never recognize me.
Yeah, nobody will know who you are. It's just another markup language. But it is very convenient. There are a lot of things are using it now. It's easy to convert to HTML, and it's it's a cool markup language. I enjoyed having to learn it.
Yeah, you could convert to HTML and add pictures to it, couldn't you? I suppose.
Yeah, you could.
One thing.
And you can also, if you put comments into the code, the comments will show up in the Markdown, but not your slides. So if you have speaker notes that are commented throughout your slides, they'll show up in when the Markdown gets rendered.
Oh, okay.
So there are a lot of cool uses for it.
With things like there was a no trans to switch off transparency for transparent terminals, does that affect the whole presentation or per slide?
No, that's when you kick off MDP. So that would be your whole presentation.
Oh, okay.
So where some terminals will allow transparency, so you can see the background, this would turn that off.
Right. So that's pretty much it, yes?
Yep. I'm going to stop recording. So
it is a very fun thing. I must say, thank you very much.
No problem.
Really.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, John.
So,